Hi everyone. There we go. Part 3 on remote working, dealing with fewer remote workers and tools to make that easier. Happy, forgot to take this off. I am blind, neither way, far away and close up now. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to part 3 of my series on dealing with remote workers. And I really hate that phrase dealing with because it makes it sound like they're a problem. And actually, they're frequently the most productive parts of your team. If you learn to work with remote workers, learn to allow your employees and contractors to work from their own spaces, you will actually get more out of them, although it may not feel that way because you don't have control of them. So, managing remote workers, and it's a little bit of a challenge because they're not in your line of sight. We talked about this yesterday. But some of the things that will help is if you have a schedule of, when you are going to meet with them face-to-face. It is good to meet with them face-to-face, especially if you have sensitive documents. Now, as a bookkeeper, we early on in the company, we hired a gal to work from her home, and then I physically went to her home and realized that she had no security at all. She had none. So we started kind of inspecting to make sure that they had a place to at least lock up the documents. And of course today we are all remote, so not just that we're remote, but everything is on the cloud, so there's not as much concern about paperwork being out because there is no paperwork, it's all online. But it kind of, I went and I looked at her house, and she was a young single mom, and I totally understand because although I'm not young anymore, I have been a single mother more than I have ever been married. So I understand those challenges. I understand the challenges when you're a single mom and your baby is little. But she had such a small space that I was immediately concerned, and unfortunately I was even more concerned when I realized how little she actually knew of bookkeeping, and we didn't have time to train her. So, it might be a good idea, depending on your industry, to make sure that they have a secure location. It may be a good idea to see them in their workspace and offer advice on how to improve their productivity. I prefer to see my contractors working in a space where they can sit in a nice executive chair, they can think. I don't like to see them in a space where it's not really an office. Even though my office isn't really an office, I have a dedicated desk. I have a dedicated space. I'm not trying to do this. I've done this for a long time, and although this is just the space I have for right now, I have years of experience working with this space. So it's not such a concern for me, but when I see someone working, standing up in their kitchen, and it doesn't even look like they're attempting an office or even an office space, and there's plenty of space in their home, it sends up some red flags. I'm not saying that it's a must. It's very much going to depend on your industry. But it's important to get to know your direct reports, your remote direct reports, whoever it is that works with you. When you have these face-to-face meetings and conference calls, make sure you're actually scheduling time or planning for time at the beginning of the phone call or the video conference to ask them how they're doing. Like you're actually, like you would if they were physically there in the office. If they were physically there in your space, in your office, you would ask them, how are things going? How did your, how was your daughter's Girl Scout camp? You told me about that last week. Are things going better with your husband? If they've opened up to you about this stuff, follow up with it because you're concerned about it. I will tell you, you can tell pretty quick if someone's asking questions because they're looking for grist for the gossip mill. But if you are genuinely concerned about your direct reports, whether they work in the office or out of the office, they will be able to tell and they will open up to you. That's critically important. That is critically important. The reason it's so important, I'm going to kind of go to my kids. I have a very open relationship with all of my kids. My oldest turns 30 next month. My baby is 14. And I have a very open relationship with them. And I will explain to them why. I am a huge believer in Simon Sinek's, find your why. The power of why. I can't remember the name of the book, but it's important that people understand the why. So if my 16-year-old daughter says, Mom, can I go on a road trip to Seattle tomorrow? I'm probably going to say no. And when she says why, I'm going to say, well, one, it's your dad's car. He did not give you permission. And two, I'm concerned about you making that long of a trip within a few days of getting your license. Let's discuss. I'm not one for, hard and fast, oh, thou shalt not. It's, come talk to me about it. I mean, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but it's a better relationship. And if you approach your remote workers kind of the same way, if they come to you and they say, oh, I found this great tool and I think it's really going to help, find out more about it instead of just saying no, because this is the way we've always done things. And it may be, I've had bookkeepers come up to me and say, oh, let's do this and this and this, and I go, why? There's a huge power in that question. Why? Well, it's because I did this at my office where I was the office manager. Okay? You work remotely in a small space. How's that going to work? You notice I'm answering their questions with a question, and then I'm going to lead them to, this is not going to be a good idea because. And I have angered people because I kept asking why. Why do you want to do it that way? Why do you want to do it that way? Why? Are you sure that's a good enough reason why? Do you think maybe there's better? Do you think maybe I've tried this before and it didn't work? But it's part of building the relationship. I don't want them to feel like I'm going to shoot down their questions because I really want to know. I struggle a little bit because I tend to be extremely direct. And a lot of people don't like that. They like to have their ego stroked, and I'm not very good at stroking egos. I am just, this is the bottom line. This is the way it is. And some people really like that, and some people really, really don't. And it doesn't seem to be any middle ground. But I kind of warn people ahead of time, too. I'm a very direct person. I can come across as a little bitchy. I don't intend to be that way. I just, I am who I am, and I wouldn't want you to ask me to change any more than I would ask them to change. Video conferencing is huge, and we're going to go into the tools in just a second. But right now, I really want to talk about building that relationship, and I feel like with people that work from home, there's a lot of reasons why people work from home. The number one reason I found is they're single parents with small kids. And they need to be able to at least be in the home so they can, see their kids. They will be your most devoted workers if you allow this. But out of sight is out of mind. So you need to schedule some times. And when they're scheduled, they can kind of plan to have Junior in the other room in the playpen and the door shut so you don't hear the commotion. And I'm kind of laughing because my first work from home job was actually being a call center employee. And I quit doing that because my baby turned 2 or 3 and he started climbing on me and wanting my attention while I was on a phone call. And that was a no-no. I couldn't do that. So, give them a chance to put the dog in the next room if you're going to be on the phone, to kind of be prepared for you. And I think that's common courtesy. I think it's, there's going to be times when you're going to need to call them at the spur of the moment. Oh, hey, I have a problem, I have a question. That's fine, but also kind of understand that's not a formal expectation. If you're calling on a video conference or you're calling at specific times to kind of check in with them, some of the things you want to do is make sure that they don't feel like they're being micromanaged. It's annoying. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating for anyone over the age of like 25 to have a manager breathing down their neck. It just is. It's much better to, at least that's not my not very humble opinion. I have never liked being micromanaged. I would prefer to have a workflow. Okay, every day I want you to do this and this and this and this and this, and I don't care what order you do it in, just as long as it gets done. That works really well for me, because if I need to jump up and take care of some errands, I don't want to feel like I'm leaving things undone. I want to feel like I can come back and I can pick up where I left off and just continue till I'm done. Video conferencing is the most wonderful tool ever invented. The webcam is absolutely the best thing in the world. The reason I say that, I have had a contractor actually want to be on Skype with me while she worked. So I would sit with my camera on and I would just work, and you know, every once in a while I would minimize a window so I could see her. And she said she just felt more like she was in an office if she could just look up at her computer and say, "Oh, Donna, I have a question. What about this?" It was a little frustrating for me because she and I ran on different internal clocks. I am not a morning person, and in the morning I am most definitely not a people person. I become a people person somewhere around 11 o'clock. But first thing in the morning I usually go hiking, and I laugh because I put my headphones in. Sometimes I don't even have music playing, but it's just so people don't talk to me. But after I've kind of woken up and I've had my first couple of Diet Cokes, then I can be very outgoing and gregarious. I just kind of laugh. I want to hang a sign around my neck that says, "Do not speak to me until 10 o'clock." But you know, if you have video conference, some of them don't do as well supporting team chats. We did try Zoom at one point, which is wonderful, and it's a free tool. It does have paid plans, but you can use it for free. And it was great because I could talk to my girls one-on-one. It was laggy when I would try to conference with 3 or 4 girls. So we would have 3 or 4 people in different places, and I would have, you know, I have their profiles all down the screen, and be training, and they would all say it's laggy, it's terrible. So you may have to try different tools to see what works best for you. Again, Zoom is great for one-on-one conferencing. Google Hangouts. I kind of laugh, and you know, people say, "Oh, I need them in the office." Why? Remember, that's my favorite question. Why? Why do you want them in the office? We have Skype, we have Zoom, we have Google Hangouts, we have all kinds of GoToMeeting, all kinds of video tools in all price ranges, from free to expensive. There's almost no reason why you absolutely have to have someone in the office if they're office workers. Now, of course, if they're auto mechanics, they have to be where the autos are. If they're salespeople, they have to be where they're selling the stuff, unless they're selling digitally. I mean, within reason, but I'm an accountant. I most of the time don't need to be physically in the office. I usually am, because it makes my manager feel better. And in one case, at my auto repair shop, they're required to have that paperwork on hand, so I just go with it, and I go down and I do the paperwork, and then I do a lot of work from home as well. When you evaluate the job performance of remote employees or remote workers, whether they're employees or contractors, and you can have either one or both, you don't evaluate them any differently than you would if they were on site. They're really no different from any of your other workers. They're just not in your line of sight. So if you have, if you expect them to work 100 accounts a month, and that's the metric. If your remote workers are working 200 accounts a month because they're remote and they can do that, you still apply the same metric to them. So if you have a remote worker that's only doing 50 accounts, then you sit them down, and just like you would if they were in the office, you just treat them as if they're in the office. They're just physically in a different location. Do not worry too much about setting up constant in-person meetings. That kind of falls into the micromanaging, and like I said, if you're over 25, if you know your job, if you're good at what you do, it becomes annoying fairly quickly. And I start asking that question that annoys people, which is why? Why do you need to meet with me every week? Can we go 2 weeks without a meeting? What if we just met once a month? Oh, we're in a crunch time. Okay, so maybe we need to meet every day. Maybe I need to go to the office after lunch every single day for a little while. But they need to understand where you're coming from. If it's simply, well, I want to see you face to face because I don't want to dial the phone, that's kind of frustrating. If it's, you know, I want to see you face to face because I don't know how to manage, is what it kind of sounds like. I want to see you face to face because I don't trust you to do your work. But it may be, I need to see you face to face so we can sit down and really discuss. But then again, can this be done remotely? Almost everything can. And remember to acknowledge them. That's, you know, when you work remotely, you feel a little bit invisible. And I have noticed that, again, my first job was working for a call center. I was working from home. I had to go to the expense of having a landline put in for this job. I had to get a special headset. And and I always felt like I was only as good as my last call. And I felt like when I do good, nobody notices, and when I do bad, nobody forgets. And that's not the relationship you want to have with any of your workers, whether they're remote or on-site. You want to really acknowledge the things that they're doing well. Nobody works quite as hard as someone who feels deeply appreciated. I have had jobs where I was literally the glue holding things together, and yet nobody would tell me that. I would find out after the fact. I had a job where I was an office manager. I was on site. It was supposed to be remote. And then it transitioned, you know, into I'm going to, you know, destroy your boundaries and I want you on site. And I hated that job. Hated it. And the guy that I was working for had a reputation in his field of being very difficult to work with. I worked with him for just over a year, and people were amazed. But I never felt appreciated. Never once. I went home from work almost every day in tears, and I'm not an emotional person, so that's not easy to do. I felt like if I put a column in a spreadsheet wrong, I was destroying his business. That's how he treated me. And I was talking to one of my friends who this was working with the disabled and getting them placed in jobs with assistance so that they would feel important and useful, which I think is important. And I was talking to my friend Erin about this person and said, yeah, I've been working for him for like a year. And she went, nobody works for him for more than about 3 months. Nobody. He has a reputation of being a jerk. And he runs everybody down. And he does this. And I'm shocked. I'm floored that you could stay with him this long. And I was going, I don't leave jobs. I don't leave until someone tells me that they don't need my services anymore. And I do the very best that I'm possible. But you know, all I heard was, it's not good enough, it's not good enough, it's not good enough, it's not good enough. And it didn't matter how minuscule the mistake was. I mean, he came in and reamed me about putting a column in a spreadsheet that he didn't think should be there. And that's definitely not my management style. My management style is, hey, look, it'd be more efficient if you did it this way. Are you having problems with spreadsheets? Can I sit down and go over that with you? Or is that just a mistake? You know, if you don't understand spreadsheets, let me give you some resources on that. If it's just you didn't understand what I was trying to tell you, I want to know that too, because I want to be sure that I'm clear in my communication. He wasn't like that. I mean, every time I made a mistake, no matter how small, it was the end of the world. And it was a relief when he fired me. And like I said, everybody was, I mean, they were like wanting to throw me parties because I was actually able to stay with him more than a few months. Um, so, like I said, I never felt appreciated. I felt like I was hated. I felt like his workers, his employees liked me, but he didn't. In fact, when he let me go, he claimed it was because I was charging too much, and I was like, well, I've charged the same amount all year. And then he offered to take me to lunch, and I was like, no, I don't want to go to lunch. I don't want you to give me the money for lunch. You have treated me like crap all year long. You can just keep on treating me like crap. It's kind of funny when he called my, like he called my new business and wanted a bookkeeper, and I kept going, don't. And that's another reason why you need to actually make sure that your employees feel appreciated. Your reputation gets out one way or another. Like I said, I always want to know. I have reached out to everyone that's worked for me and asked, what can I do better? And it's been interesting because on one hand, I was told to my face, oh, you did a great job. And on the other hand, I was told by somebody else, oh, they all think you're awful. And so I think honesty is absolutely vital in communication. So on to tools. Now, I keep harping about you do not want to micromanage your remote workers. I don't care if they're in Hoboken or in India. You do not want to micromanage them. You need to believe, first you need to establish that they know their job. Once you know that they know their jobs, you can just let them go. Let them run with it. And they will actually outperform on-site workers because they know that they have to work twice as hard and accomplish twice as much. It's kind of like being a woman. Have to work twice as hard and accomplish twice as much to be considered half as good. So your remote workers are really going to work hard for you. Some of the tools that I think are really good for remote workers. One would be a CRM or project management tool. Asana, I guess the programmers call it Asana, but the word is actually pronounced Asana, which I know because I do yoga. Asana is just a wonderful tool for project management. Depending on your industry, you may need different tools. But Asana is just a straightforward project management tool. I've also seen Reiki, which I actually don't care much for. I've seen, I am currently using Zoho CRM because I can just put all of my clients in there. And it's just a quick way of documenting that, oh yes, I sent that email. Oh, they called and they asked about this, this, and this is what I told them. They called and set up an appointment. It's time for me to set up a new appointment. Also, Asana Asana includes task management, conversation tracking, team assignments, and project archives. So that's a really great tool, and you can look at that, and then you can look at other tools and see what works best for your business. But you're looking for a way to communicate with your team without email threats. Other means of communication, other communication tools that work really well include Slack, and WhatsApp. When you're using these chat-based tools, you need to be careful. I actually prefer Slack to WhatsApp. You need to be careful though, because it's easy on a chat or a text conversation to come across as snippy. I have noticed that when people are writing an email, it feels more official, so they tend to stop and think. But when they are in a chat room of some kind, they will just fire it off and, let the dice fall where they may. I don't know what it is about hiding behind a keyboard that make people kind of difficult, but I've noticed it a lot on Facebook too. Facebook seems to and Twitter seems to bring in these people that they may be really nice in person, but they're so awful behind the keyboard. And so, you know, if you use a chat room, you and your team need to be careful about how you communicate. And I would assume that the boss is always in that room. I mean, I have even sent requests to project managers or property managers and said, you need to send all of your payment requests to this email address. It's too hard for us to keep track of Slack and WhatsApp and email and this, and this. We need it all in one space. And because I'm direct and I would have said that in an email as well. I didn't feel like I was being snippy. I was just, you know, we have process and procedures, please follow them. And I actually got pretty well attacked for that, which I'm not down for. So you need some sort of communication tools. Asana comes highly recommended. I have not used it, but it's well liked. One of the founders of Facebook, not Zuckerberg, but another guy, co-founded Asana. And the whole idea is just to have all of this communication in one place, and to be able to communicate freely like you would in an office. When I work is to track employee hours and scheduling. I do not use it. I use Toggle to track my hours, which reminds me I probably need to start that. Facebook Live. This is administrative, and I can fix that later. But you may need, I use Toggle, but you need some way of tracking hours. Excuse me. If you're an hour-based company. I like to track my hours because I can kind of figure out, well, I worked this many hours and I earned this much money. And since I earn so much per project, I can then break that down and say, I'm making this much an hour. Which, by the way, varies from week to week, depending on whether or not I have reconciliations to do. I done this is a and I don't like it. I prefer Todoist or Wunderlist to I done this. The idea behind I done this is to reply to an email and say that you did something that includes all. But if you use a to-do list of some kind, Todoist, Wunderlist, those are the two I like most. I'm currently using Wunderlist. I still have Todoist. I haven't migrated off of it yet. But I like Wunderlist, one of the best. You can collaborate with teams on those. You can assign the tasks to someone else. When I first started working with Todoist and I was on their free trial for the pro version, I would do things like I would create chore lists and I would assign them to my kids. And the kids loved it. And it would be easy to do to have kind of a master list of things that need to be done and then assign these tasks to different team members. And then when they click it done, it's just done. You don't have to worry about it. But if you are one of those people that want to receive a report on someone's workload, I done this is a great tool. Basecamp is project management. It's a great tool to use too. You can monitor tasks, discussions, documents, scheduling, milestones, collaboration, etc., 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 and it's user-friendly. GoToMeeting is great. I don't know what the price is on that. Zoom is wonderful. If it's a free tool, Google Hangouts is a free tool. You can kind of schedule things in advance. Buffer or Hootsuite are great for pre-scheduling social media posts, which of course in today's world it's important that we keep up with all of that across platforms. What do we have today? Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. I got off Twitter a long time ago because it was just mean, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can use those for your social media marketing, but you want to use a tool such as Hootsuite, which I have used, Buffer, which I haven't, to pre-schedule those status updates at a time when people would expect you to be open, and not at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're actually up working. Again, GoToMeeting, also Google Hangouts, also Zoom, also et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. GoToMeeting's a great choice. It is actually one of my favorites, and it is just a video conferencing. Also Skype. Slack is great for team-based teams. You can set up teams in Slack. This is one that I'm using for one of my clients right now, or they're using and I'm on it. You can have a group chat. You can schedule, have different channels. If you have people that, one of the things they're using this for, because this is a big company, they have one that's for purchasing, things that need to be purchased. We also have one for general accounting. We have one for accounts payable. We have one for different funding requests. And the people that are requesting funds don't need to know what's going on the accounting team. So we just separate that out. And then you can also direct message back and forth, and it just works as a chat room. It's pretty nice. But again, when you're using a chat, be cautious. And I'm kind of speaking to the remote workers as well. Be cautious and err on the side of kindness, because things can come across. It's just easy to get snippy, whether or not it's meant to be. Dropbox. How do we ever work without Dropbox? Also, similar tools, Google Drive and OneDrive from Microsoft. OneDrive is actually my preference, but that's just for me. I don't use that to collaborate. Dropbox is what I use to collaborate. I actually don't use Google Drive very often for collaboration. I have, but Dropbox is my go-to. And it is easy, it is cloud-based, it is simple, everybody knows Dropbox. You send them an invite, you can share specific files, you can share folders, you can share the whole box. And so it's really kind of nice. I could not work without Dropbox. I thought it was crazy when I first heard about it, and then I tried it, and I am absolutely hooked. LastPass. I don't use it. This is to keep track of your login credentials. I use a password-protected page in OneNote to do that. But you need a place to put all of your logins, because I don't know about you, but I don't remember a single login that I have. And I have my bank login and my credit card login and my other credit card login and a login to store card number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and a login to Google, and a login to Facebook, and another login to Facebook, and my kids' logins, and my clients' bank logins, and yeah, I mean, it's just, and Slack, and WhatsApp, and there's just so many. I don't know how anybody keeps track of a whole bunch of logins unless they're actually using the same username and password every time, which is not secure. So you need a place to put all of those all that login information, where you can then lock it up. You can remember just the one password, and password protect that file. And then, in my case, I memorize everything. In my case, I have so many of them. If I can just remember, that this one page in OneNote is password protected, or this one notebook in OneNote is password protected, and encrypted, and whatever else I need to do with it, then I can have all of those logins in one place and not have to remember so much. I'm really big on not remembering things. I would rather have someone else or something else, hello Cortana, remember this for me. Take care of that for me. I really feel like my brain power is better used not remembering stuff, but actually doing things. HackPad is a note-taking application. I have never heard of it, actually. I typically, if I'm just taking notes, I will use OneNote. I don't even use Evernote. I use OneNote. I prefer it. It's easy to understand. It comes free with Microsoft. It is a free download. You can get it across platforms. You can have as many notebooks as you want, and I just kind of visualize it as spiral notebooks. 6 subject spiral notebooks, only there's an infinite number of subjects. And I can put all this information in there, I can password protect it, and then I don't have to worry about it. If there's something I need to collaborate with a teammate on, I can create a notebook for that and invite as many users as I need to. So that's what I use for collaboration and note-taking. My point, and then accounting software. If you're looking for online web-based accounting software, my first choice is QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Online is not my first choice for accounting software. QuickBooks Desktop is my first choice, and eventually I'm going to figure out how to do that on the web. And there are other options such as Xero that are out there. Most people know QuickBooks. My dislike with QuickBooks is that I find it to be slow. I still find it to be clunky online. The online version is radically different from the desktop-based version, and that's a little bit frustrating if you are dealing with a lot of clients. I kind of laugh and I say, you know, with QuickBooks Desktop, I don't even have to look at the screen. I already know the software so well that I know what I'm doing. I just know. QuickBooks Online is not the same as QuickBooks Desktop. I don't even know why they gave it the same name. It is, and they changed the tabs recently. So here I go to the left column, and that's where my vendors are. And all of a sudden I look and I'm like, the vendors are gone. Oh wait, they created a tab under expenses because I would have thought of that. And I wonder what some of the software engineers were thinking. Kind of the caution with cloud-based accounting software is that a lot of these, especially here at Silicon Slopes, where I'm at in Utah, or Silicon Valley, they seem to be very interested in form over function. And I really don't care what it looks like. But I want it to look the same. If I have a vendor tab in the left column, I want it to stay in the left column because I'm never going to remember to go to expenses and then look for vendors until I've done this several times and gotten mad. Because that's just how I am. And partly it's because that's the way it is in QuickBooks Desktop, which is what I use the most. That's also the way it is in Xero, which I hardly use at all. I hate it when I have these little moments when I don't remember what I was talking about. But one of the great things, which is also a huge challenge with accounting's SaaS or SaaS, or software as a service, cloud-based accounting software, is that the engineers can change that at any time, and they are not accountants. And they don't seem to understand how all of this works, so then you end up with really weird-looking reports. My preference is QuickBooks Desktop. QuickBooks Desktop makes sense to me. It's so incredibly intuitive that it's also very easy to mess up, which I guess is what they're trying to avoid. But whether you use QuickBooks on the desktop or you use, and by the way, there are ways to share that. They're usually fairly pricey, but there are ways to share it. So long as you only use one user in it at a time. It's almost impossible to share QuickBooks Desktop in a multi-user setting without renting server space somewhere and having the server service host the files. And that's really the downside to it. One of the downsides to QuickBooks Online that I don't like is that there are room for 3 regular users and 2 accounting users, and I find that difficult and clunky. I don't know why they limit it to 5. Zero has unlimited users as of the last I heard, which was one of the things that really attracted me to it. Although typically it's usually only 1 or 2 people in at a time, it's nice to be able to set up as many users as you need to. So, you know, with all of the software, and all of the cloud-based services, and all of the options we have, I am a huge fan of working from my own space. I look for any excuse possible to do my work at home when it's convenient for me. And a lot of times the workday, you know, the 9 to 5 workday is not a convenient time for me. I am a single mom. I have teenagers. I need to be available to them. I have other things that can only be done between 9 and 5. And so sometimes it's more like 5 in the afternoon till 2 in the morning that works better. Or it could be, you know, I'm a little bit of a night owl, so a lot of times it is the late nights that work best. A lot of times it is the, you know, the odd hours that work best for me personally. But I think it's worth spending the time with your team and finding out what works best for them. And if you are one of those people that just really has to have their team in the office, learn and grow and let your team fly. I might have to do a separate video on this, but I was thinking about playing small. I was talking to a friend of mine who's probably my closest friend, and he played soccer when he was young. Still plays soccer, I guess. And he talked about, we were talking about my knee. I have a meniscus tear, evidently. And it doesn't hurt all the time, but there's times when I'll go to stand up and it feels like a little catch or a pop. And I've already been to the doctor for it once. And when it pops, it won't hold my weight. Or it catches. I'm not quite sure what term to use, but it's like a catch. And it won't hold my weight then until I, you know, for just a brief moment. Then it hurts for a while. So we were talking about knees, and he was telling me how he blew out his ACL. I think it was his ACL. He was playing soccer and fell, did something, and his knee, instead of going back and forth like this, it went sideways, you know, like my finger doesn't move. And it, you know, blew out his knee. And we were talking a little bit more about broken bones. And I kind of laughed. I said, you know, when I was a kid, when I was a girl, I climbed trees, I built tree houses, I fell out of trees, I felt like Charlie Brown a lot with people snatching things away from me. I was bullied pretty badly. That actually didn't stop until after college. The name calling continued in college. I was called Four Eyes. But anyway, I played all these games and I did all this running and I climbed trees and I just fell out of trees. I've never broken a bone. And I don't know if it's just because he was talking about how hard he plays soccer. He plays with his whole heart. And he has fallen playing soccer and actually broken his sternum. And since I've known him, he's broken his ribs. I don't think he's broken anything else. He has broken his ribs. When he was younger, he broke his sternum. You know, we were just kind of going down. He was like, well, wait, which ones have I not broken? And I was going, I've never broken a bone. I've never had surgery. I've never had any problems. And after I left, I thought, is this because I'm playing small? Or is it because I just am tough? And I'm inclined to believe it's because I tend to play small. And I don't want to do that anymore. But the best way for me to grow to my fullest potential is to allow me to work in an environment that works best for me. I accomplish I accomplished the difficult stuff immediately. The impossible does take a little bit longer, but I can do that too. So I'm huge on finding all these wonderful tools that will allow me to work from my own space and work most effectively in my own space. I have always been one to think outside of the box. I have seen a future where most people work from home since I was about 10, and I don't even want to tell you when that was. When I was like -20. I remember seeing a modem for the very first time, and that was when I just knew that I wanted a career. I always knew I wanted a career. But my mom and dad owned a pest control business in Seattle, and it did extremely well. It wasn't until recently that it really hit me that how wealthy we were out of this business. But my mom worked in a spare bedroom. She was home. If we needed her, we could call the house phone. She was right there. And this, of course, this is pre-cell phones. This is when the house phone was tied to the wall, and she had a really long cord. We could call her, and she was at home, and she could, if she had to, drop everything and come get us. And I remember what a blessing it was. And I remember thinking that that's what I wanted for my kids. I want a career. I have a wonderful career. I am an accountant. I love what I do, and I can do this from home. So long as I have people working with me that understand how to manage that. We'll get there. I guess I just want to close by saying, allow your people to work from home. You will be shocked at how well they do. If they don't do well, if they don't know how to work from home, if they're not self-motivated, you probably don't want them working for you anyway, but you can at least bring them back to the office. There's really very little risk in it. Have a wonderful evening. Have a great, what day is it? Tuesday? Have a great Tuesday, and I will talk to you tomorrow.